Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So I wanted to do a little podcast about this one because you remember when I was talking previously about my daughter and, I was questioning, like from my naive or maybe good view of human beings, that why, would they want to do something that wasn't in the for the best for my daughter. Like people who are in, the social services, people who are in those child or, even in care, in hospitals and etc. Because obviously my thinking is, that these people, want to do these jobs because they care about this thing. They want to look after elderly people, vulnerable people, and they want to help them in hospitals, doctors, and they want to save people's lives and etc. And at schools, with this Senko and all that kind of stuff, they want to help children who have learning difficulties or disabilities to, just be like atypical, or, as beneficial as atypical children and etc. But the problem is that's a rather naive view of humanity, is because we all know there's many cases, and maybe they're isolated in the sense that, there'll be cases of these, I've seen footage of care homes where people have been, thrown to the floor or abused, even, with this recent thing with them in the funeral parlour where this man was sexually abusing the people that he was embalming or doing pathologies of, I can't remember which one it was, and also we know, there's many cases of this care with killing people. There was one recently, this lady chopped this person up because they didn't lend them some money, and they doctored their will so that they would get the money. There's previous cases about that. So, I suppose when I come across these incidents in my own life and thinking like, but I don't understand this person, it doesn't make sense that why they're saying what they're saying, because obviously they have the best interests, but I guess I can't tell that because I can't read that person's heart. I can't read that person's mind. I don't know whether they've had enough of that job and then they've just given up. And so when I saw this on Sky News, it made me think that, yeah, of course, like this case is showing, that people, just because people are in those trusted positions to look after vulnerable people or people in care or disabilities, etc., that they should somehow be like, to use the example, Mother Teresa, although now there was a Sky documentary questioning even her. So I'm not sure if I can use that anymore as an example, but just because they're in these professions of care or to look after people with disability or vulnerability, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be doing the things for the best, because they may be these individuals that have just given up or don't, because they don't have the condition, they don't understand or don't empathise with it or don't know, because it looks like, from my point of view, seeing, like from autism, which has been known clinically, although I expect it's gone on in time immemorial for 50 or 60 years, and yet they still don't seem to have a strategy. And I know they're going to blame that on the spectrum for what's the best way of schooling, what's the best way of education. They're just still using the atypical thing, and if your child doesn't still meet that, then that's still a problem and they need to be put in a special school, like the poem that I read, like the previous podcast talked about. So anyway, I know I've waffled on about all that, but I wanted to just bring this to you because it horrified me to hear these examples. I'm not going to play it all, of this institute that was meant to look after vulnerable people, and the descriptions were like the places in the 1900s, the sanitariums and etc., how they used to be treated. And so it seems like, despite time and technology and empathy and all those things changing, and we still haven't found the love inside of all of us that we all have, humanity, to actually really try and find what's beneficial for each of us. Anyway, listen to this and then you can see for yourself.
Said she wasn't properly checked. A year and a half after Mia's death, a teenager went into the group's Maidenhead unit, who we're calling Jane. Jane wants to remain anonymous.
Broke me, made things worse, and I don't think I'm the only one.
We're not showing Jane's face or her mother's, but they've agreed for their voices to be used. Jane went into the Maidenhead unit with autism and low-level self-harming when she was 14.
There was another visitor room, and that's the one that we were mostly taken to.
It was a place Jane's mother says she came to know well. Everything about that time remains vivid for both of them. Jane is now 18.
Such a horrible place that people resort to such horrible things. When I walked in, there's blood all over the walls, and people just literally whack their head against the wall.
Jane's mother kept a diary of her visits to the Maidenhead unit.
I saw the children whacking their heads. I saw a child kneeing herself in the face. I saw a young man, I can only describe him as a young man, he didn't look like a child, masturbating in the middle of the corridor. It's like what you read about asylums and workhouses, the clear trauma and pain and suffering. And they were children, and they were treated worse than animals.
Jane's care was examined in a subsequent independent review shared with Sky News and concluded there was little offered in terms of actual treatment. It described the unit as a dark space that had an oppressive feel.
I just get flashbacks of what it looks like what it smelled like, just what it felt like, and then obviously the individual things that happen whilst you're there, but just the whole thing.
Again and again, former patients told us the hospitals were places where they felt they wouldn't get better.
I knew the moment I arrived there that it wasn't the right place for me. There was screaming, there was alarms going off, there was blood on the walls. It was pretty bad.
It's a year now since Alice left Maidenhead. She went in at the age of 16, she says in crisis, severely self-harming and with an eating disorder.
You sprained your wrist and your ankle?
Yeah, because they weren't holding me correctly, yeah.
Another former patient complaining not just about the techniques used to stop her self-harming, but detailing how she felt the environment put her at even greater risk.
Often a lot of other patients were using different self-harming methods. Staff often didn't stop them from doing that, so they'd do it in communal areas, and I'd learn new ways to self-harm. I think it's awful. I just don't think that any place like that treated me like that should be open. I don't even know why they're still running.
When you read these testimonies, what do you make of them?
There's references here to blood on the walls, describing treatment that sounds barbaric.
We showed our findings to Anne Longfield, the former Children's Commissioner, who's now chairing an independent review of inpatient mental health care.
The CQC really does need to take this seriously and needs to visit at speed to ensure they get an understanding of what's going on there.
Sky News can reveal NHS England has paid nearly £190 million to run children's mental health services at a number of Huntercombe sites since 2015.
The kind of eye-watering sums that we're giving to providers to provide specialist care, clearly what you're showing here is that was making some children much worse. On every level, that's not something that's acceptable.
At Active Care Group, we strive to ensure our patients, residents and clients are kept safe and...
In December 2021, the Huntercombe Group was taken over by Active Care Group, which told us it has robust processes in place. Dr. Sylvia Tang has been the CEO since June 2020, a year and a half before the merger. In a statement, she said, "At the time most of these incidents are alleged to have taken place, the Active Care Group did not own the facilities at which they are purported to have happened. The previous owners retain all the legal entities and associated records for these facilities prior to their acquisition. The current group is therefore unable to comment on the services provided prior to this date. Even so, we are very saddened and concerned to hear about these patient experiences." The previous owners, Ellie Investments, said it regrets the hospitals which were independently managed failed to meet the expected standards for high quality care. In February this year, 2 months after the acquisition of the Huntercombe Group by Active Care Group, a patient at the unit in Maidenhead, now called Taplow Manor, died. What happened is now the subject of an investigation by Thames Valley Police and the CQC. Active Care Group says the death of a young person at Taplow Manor in February 2022 was a tragic and sad event. We have already taken steps to make improvements to the service and remain committed to providing the best possible care for our patients. The NHS is currently paying for nearly 100 beds at the Huntercombe units now owned by Active Care Group. Maidenhead is rated as requiring improvement and Staffordshire inadequate. An NHS spokesperson said all services must provide safe, high-quality care and deliver on the commitments in their contracts. The CQC said Active Care Group is subject to close and ongoing monitoring. Where we find issues, we have taken and continue to take decisive action.
So this is the problem. I cut it there if you want. I'll put the link so you can hear the whole thing. But this is the problem, and I found this with the schooling system in this country as well. They got a scale, like needs improvement, inadequate. One of our local schools said it needs improvement, that's why we didn't send them there. So that's the problem. They shouldn't be running if it says needs improvement or inadequate. They should have because a lot of these are academies. They should have their ability taken away. But I suppose the problem, the catch-22 of that is that then there's no other place for those children to go because there's not enough schools, So that's the problem. But it seems wrong because obviously if your child lives in that or is going to that school, because those schools are full, even the inadequate and the needs improvement ones, because of obviously the numbers. Eventually, if your first school, you get your second school, and then eventually some kids must end up in these schools. And what future are they going to have, especially if they have special needs and etc. But even the general atypical student, if it needs improvement or it just or is inadequate, that is so wrong. And same with this, with the hospital system, NHS paying out someone else to do their job, and then this never works, this outsourcing business. It doesn't work in business, it doesn't work in care. We should stop doing this outsourcing because it leaves that ability for a shoddy job to be done or not so good job to be done, all in the idea of saving money. But it's not... So in this case, like the NHS are saying, people should keep out their contracts. Well, wait a minute. Your own CQC has said that they're inadequate and needs improvement. That means surely they failed their contract and they shouldn't be allowed to run anymore. No? So, it's like this is what happens a lot in everything to come within our system, in our world, and wherever you are, is this idea that we know there's problems, but we're going to keep our fucking eyes closed and our ears closed and forget about them and hope they go away, where people are suffering about them. That's the problem. So these poor children, and this is in the first world country. This is a first world problem. In other places they don't have these things, I know, and they have other sufferings far worse than this. But it's just this idea, and what... like in the system that we live within, let's talk about that first. Seems like that's how I break down every podcast. And the system that we live in, those people who believe in the system that we live within as being the only way and the best way, where you believe in money and all that kind of stuff, then you have this, where you've got EQC, whatever the name is, who are meant to be checking these things, same as you have the school system. But when you check their reports and etc., they go every year, every 5 years. They don't go regularly enough. And when they do find problems, they just write a fucking report about it. Like words are going to solve it. Like you're just hoping that the people that have been committing have been making it inadequate are going to somehow change by words. Either they need shutting down, or they need better teachers or better care workers. But it seems like as I'm going older, I'm seeing these things, and I'm sure everyone listening to this is seeing these things. When you have a problem, if you're unlucky enough to have a problem where you need to use these services, you will then see the inadequacies in most of them. And everyone knows about it. There's lots of people who are analysing it, but there's no action being done as usual. That's the problem. Well, how are you going to solve a problem with no action being done? I don't know. It's very frustrating. And then from a point of view of my way, the new way, not of understanding that money in the system doesn't work for the benefit of humanity, that the reason why we have these inadequacies and etc. is because of the way the system is. Because you have to have a job to get money to survive. You can't not have a job because you need... if you're in some country, you need medical aid and all that kind of stuff. You need money to actually have medical aid. You're lucky if you're in the UK where you've got the NHS, so you don't need a job at least. But that's how we all have to work. So there's a lot of people who are doing jobs that are not suited for those jobs, not good at those jobs, but that's the only thing they can do, and that's the only way they can make a living. So they carry on doing those jobs, and they're the ones that are creating the inadequacies in these things. They're the ones that are not following the protocols properly and the instructions. They're the ones that are causing harm to other human beings. Maybe not always because of that, but I suspect that's the real issue. If we didn't have money, we could have as many institutes, the schooling system that is much better. We wouldn't have a two-tier system of private and public where, all those problems that come with that. You would have a level playing field for everyone. Everyone will get the same kind of care. What's stopping you from getting the same medical care that if you were, say, some big celebrity that has its own swanky hospital, mental institute that you could go to and, get the private care, of comfy things and, and all the best medical attention. What's stopping you from that? It's money. It's the system that we live within. It's the way that we see each other, that we got to pretend and play make-believe like we did as kids, but we're doing it as adults, putting on the cloaks, putting on the costumes to pretend to be these jobs. We're living a life of money, of these things, rather than looking at what as human beings do we need. We as human beings, we need to make sure that everyone has a good quality of life, and there's no reason not to have that because we have all the resources that we need to make that happen. We have all the knowledge to make that happen. We can make every city like New York or London, everywhere around the world. Every place could have a great infrastructure. Every place could have enough homes for every single person, nice luxury homes for every single person. Not like the Queen or some pop star or celebrity, because that's lavish and that's unnecessary. That's opulence and those things are not necessary. Yes and no, there's going to be people saying, you're a socialist, you're a communist, and etc. No, none of those things work. Labour, all those things, they're part of the system. We need something brand new, something where we live for the benefit of humanity, which is, like I'm saying, having that infrastructure for every single person, having medical care for every single person, high notch. Because you don't need money, only those people that really want to do those jobs, that really can do those jobs, would do those jobs. Yes, you still have people wanting to do jobs that they shouldn't really be doing, but at least you'd have a way of getting rid of them, and you would then just have a majority of those people that really care to do those things, and there wouldn't be a place where everyone would just stop doing things, because people in us, that's what makes us want to do these jobs, not the money. The money's just, that's the way we've been trained to think it's that. It's because we do. When you ask someone, why did you become a doctor? Why did you become a policeman? Why did you do this? Why did you make these inventions? Because these people want to do these things. Yeah, some of it is because of pride and money and all that kind of stuff. But the real ones will say, yeah, because I wanted to help people. Because I wanted to make something that helps this person, so I invented this. Because of a need or a necessity it came from. Because they had a personal experience. And that's so we wouldn't lose the workforce. And of course we wouldn't need a massive workforce that we do now, because we wouldn't be making unnecessary things. We wouldn't be competing. We wouldn't have 15 different car manufacturers or washing powder manufacturers trying to get you to spend your pennies on their product. We would just need one of them, because that's all we really need. And we could have the best one, unlike say with Samsung and iPhone, where they keep making a new one, or Windows making a new one every year, and they probably made a better one when they first invented it and they downgraded it so they could release it over a few years. You get none of that. The best thing would come to you straight away. You wouldn't have to wait for it. You wouldn't have to keep paying for it over and over again, because it would be unnecessary to do that, because that's futility. That's all about making money in competition and staying ahead of your fellow business. That's not for the benefit of humanity. That's the benefit of those people that are the chairmen of these companies and making money. This is all there. You know, I just need someone who has the ability to change this, who wants to change this, because it's not going to happen from these little voices like us, because we're unable to change these things. Only these big people, unfortunately these big people, they're part of the system, so they probably haven't woken up. They probably haven't seen that, wait a minute, my mansion, my money and all this thing is the part of the problem. I need to actually get rid of all these things. I need to, because I don't hear any great leaders. I don't hear any religious people. I don't hear anyone saying these things, that we need to get rid of money, that we need to get rid of our system, that we need to be doing things for the benefit of humanity, which isn't working, these unnecessary things. You know, we all have to do a job, yes. But it has to be one that's beneficial for humanity, not just for you to survive by making money in that way. And so, I don't know when that's ever going to come about. But anyway, that's getting off the point as usual. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.